This is the story of Shaul Ladany, speedy, patient, light-hearted. A man who is mostly unknown, but is embedded in history during its most tragic events and most astounding achievements. Born into a Jewish family in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, on April 2, 1936, at the beginning of Adolf Hitler's reign in Europe, Shaul Ladany and his family fled to Hungary in 1941 after the Luftwaffe bombed his hometown. At the young age of 5, Shaul suffered his first experience of tragedy as his family and friends were persecuted for being Jewish, hiding with them in a Hungarian monastery for 3 years until the Nazis discovered their hiding spot. At the age of 8, he was taken to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp as part of the final solution policy the Nazis had implemented to rid the world of the Jewish race.
Between the two fences, there was an ordinary fence and an electric fence, a tomato plant growing and then getting on it a small green tomato, and a green tomato grew and became reddish and more looking ripe, and my eyes came out of the holes just for that strive to get that tomato, which I was unable to get it. I was awfully hungry.
The reality of the concentration camp was not new to young Shaul. His grandparents died in Auschwitz after being taken a few years earlier. Triumphantly, Bergen-Belsen was not where Shaul's story ended. In December 1944, American Jews paid a hefty ransom to free the Ladany family just as young Shaul was taken to the gas chambers. The family survived in Switzerland for the remainder of the war, returning to their home in Belgrade a few years later. The end of the European horrors brought a home for Jews in 1948 with the creation of Israel in the Middle East. The Ladany family immigrated to Israel and settled in Tel Aviv. Living in Israel was not without its troubles. Beginning in 1948, several wars broke out between Israel and its neighbors over the right for the Jews to live in this area. It was the United Nations in 1947 who partitioned Palestine into a Jewish and Arab state, against the wishes of the other Arab states. Throughout this, Shaul was able to thrive academically and finish his schooling with a master's degree in science in 1961. To keep himself busy during his schooling years, he began running at the age of 18. Running, which would later turn into speed walking, was a way for Shaul to focus his energy and mentally escape the turbulent world around him.
I competed in running competitions and ran until a friend that in one of those the long distance marches that tried, at that time he was not yet a friend of mine. He tried to accompany me running, and he was unable to keep up running my walking pace, and he suggested to me that I should enter some official walking competitions.
In an interview regarding his speedwalking career, Ladany stated, "I'm not a psychologist, but was I stubborn so I entered race walking? Or did I enter race walking and become stubborn? It's the same in all long-distance events. Quitters don't win, and winners don't quit." He won his first race in 1963 and continued to do so over the next few decades. He won Israeli national titles and broke countless U.S. records. It was this type of stubbornness and determination that would help him survive more tragedies yet to come. Ladany's career and competitive racing were put on hold as a 6-day war broke out between Israel and its neighbors Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. Ladany contacted the commander of the artillery corps, telling him that he was ready to leave the States and volunteer for reserve duty. Even though no request was made of Ladany to return to Israel and help out with the impending war, he decided to hop on a cargo plane headed for Europe with supplies for the Israeli troops. At the conclusion of the war, he moved to New York City and attended Columbia University to obtain a doctorate in industrial engineering and business administration and continue his racing career. The next journey in his life began when he earned a chance to compete in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. Although he did not win, it fed his stubborn nature to do better the next time. In his next few races in Spain, Israel, and the United States, he shattered world records, earning him a reputation as a fierce competitor and a friend. His racing career would take center stage as a member of the Israeli team at the 1972 Munich Olympics. He felt compelled to wear the Star of David on his warm-up jersey to prove to the Germans that he was a Holocaust survivor. He commented in the press that he learned Germany well while at Bergen-Belsen, and that he doesn't hate the Germans, just that he had no sympathy for the generation who lived during the time of the Holocaust.
I have always tried to figure out the age of a person in Germany that I was facing. And if, in my opinion, he was of an age that he might have been involved might have been involved in the war and in any atrocities. So being at the end of the end of the war in May 45, of an age 18, I did not want to have any contact with him. But with others, the younger generation, I accepted that you cannot blame every person for what his parents, grandparents, and so on have done.
September 5th, the day of the terrorist attack on the Israeli team, is still a deep wound in Ladany's soul. In the early morning, Palestinian terrorists broke into the Israeli quarters in the Olympic Village with the intention to capture and kill the athletes and coaches. Ladany was fast asleep in his room when a teammate woke him up, and after listening to the terrorists outside his door, he left the building through a back exit. Ladany was seen running through the village and ended up where the United States team was staying. Ladany was the first person to alert others of the attack, and only one of 5 of his team members to escape. He was reported as dead in the newspapers, but later recalled in his autobiography. The impact did not hit me at the time, when we were in Munich. It was when we arrived back in Israel. At the airport in Lod, there was a huge crowd, maybe 20,000 people, and each one of us, the survivors, stood by one of the coffins on the runway. Some friends came up to me and tried to kiss me and hug me as if I was almost a ghost that came back alive. It was then that I really grasped what had happened and the emotion hit me. To this day, he visits the grave of his fallen teammates. This is where Shaul's story probably should have ended. A Holocaust and terrorist attack survivor, living out his days teaching and researching in his home in Israel. But his story isn't over yet. Ladany used his fuel to compete and the need to cope with tragedy to not only return to competitive walking, but to do so victoriously. He won the gold medal in the 100-kilometer walk at the 1972 World Championships in Switzerland just weeks after the massacre. His racing career continued until he was 75. Along the way, he broke and still holds world records in speed racing. Ladany's story also takes him to the classroom. For 3 decades, he has taught industrial engineering and business management at the Ben Gurion University of the Negev in Tel Aviv, Israel, and a guest lecturer in 6 different countries. Ladany's 3-decade teaching career has afforded him many accolades and publications. His ability to connect personally with his students and his fluency in 9 languages made him a popular lecturer. Just when Ladany's story was going to end triumphantly, it took another tragic turn when in July 2002 he was diagnosed with lymphoma and skin cancer. But even cancer could not keep this man down. After going through chemotherapy and radiation, he continued to teach at the university and talk about his life experiences to whomever would listen. Even though that is the end of the story, that is not the end of his life. The speedy, patient, light-hearted man is known in the eyes of the world as a survivor, Olympics champion, hero, mentor, and to me, a friend.
So this is, you might say, I had so many lucky events, and I want to point out, when you say to somebody that survived the Holocaust, he had a luck, that's not true. In order to survive during the war years, the Holocaust, a person needed a series of lucky events. and unfortunately we had it.